We have Ken Calligar here with us today on the State of Mind podcast. We're going to talk about some ways that we can develop homes and make them all, fire repellent, hurricane. Help me out. What else do we?
You want to make your community future-proof.
Future-proof.
That means building for what's next, not what was in the past.
Yeah. So fires, hurricanes, natural disasters.
Seismic,
the apocalypse, basically.
The apocalypse. Right.
Okay. So,
you're trying to avoid the worst day you could ever have.
Great. You guys need to know Ken. Ken is someone you want to have in your phone book. As of now, how would you say business is just a lot busier post Palisades fires?
Yeah. So we've been around since basically 1992. We're in 20 countries, probably done 5,000 constructions of some type or other. And the history has always been, especially in the last 10 years of natural disaster, that as soon as there's a natural disaster, the phone starts to ring and the emails start to go crazy, right?
Yeah.
So in LA and Altadena, you lost 15,000 homes. So that meant a lot of inquiry. And frankly, we're a relatively small company, and that is pretty overwhelming. But yeah, our business, in January of last year, 25, we had exactly 0 projects that we were working on in Los Angeles County. Most of our work was international, and now we have about 100.
What countries?
So we've been all throughout the Caribbean, Europe, Middle East. We sold to the U.S. Army in Iraq and Afghanistan. We do a lot of work in Mexico for the Four Seasons resorts and the Amman resorts, doing a lot of residence programs for them, beachfront and whatnot, because of the hurricane ratings of the system and the energy efficiency. We've got a huge project that we've been working on now for about 2 years in the Philippines to develop hundreds of thousands, in fact, of apartments.
And so from start to finish, so what are you guys exactly doing to these buildings to make them safer, right?
Yeah, so simply we make a panelized product, right? It's a panel that's used for your entire building envelope. So it's your walls, your intermediate floor if you're 2 or more stories, and your roof. And the issue is very simple. If you're trying to create a resilient or an energy efficient building or both, you have to control your building envelope, right? You keep the bad stuff on the outside, you keep the good stuff on the inside, right? So you keep your well-conditioned, nice air on the inside, have a nice, clean, healthy indoor environment on most days. You keep the heat out, you keep the humidity out, you keep the cold out. And then on that day when you have a natural disaster, that's when you need this optimal barrier. That's when you need to be in the fortress. And so our panels consist of expanded polystyrene for insulation. That gives you continuous insulation throughout the entire building. So it's very energy efficient. And what holds that all together is a proprietary steel system that's welded wire fabric on both sides of the panel, the inside and the out. And then it's connected with a truss system. So basically you're within a space frame, in engineering language, within all of your walls and roof. Now that's all covered on the exterior in concrete and on the interior in concrete. So you end up with basically a monolithic shell that consists of the insulation in the inside, a steel frame, and then covered on both sides in concrete. And because all the panels are tied in, because it's your entire building envelope, the buildings are basically structurally the same whether you turned it on its side because you're in a box or you're in a rectangle or whatever shape it may be. But structurally, you're passing all the strain of a 300-mile-per-hour wind or a seismic event throughout the entire structure, and it's dissipated. So in 33 years, 5,000 constructions, we've had exactly 0 damage from hurricane, flood, tornado, seismic, and wildfire.
So let me ask you, if I have a standing house in the Palisades now, and I'm building a house in the Palisades, is it something that you can adapt to a standing house? Can you add these things, or it has to be, it's from scratch?
No, this is for new construction.
This is for new construction.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, basically what we're doing is if you think of traditional residential construction, light gauge wood framing, that is very much the poorest performing building in our view that you can create residentially, and we're on the complete other end of the spectrum as the strongest, most resilient, most energy efficient building that you can do. So we do not marry with inferior systems, right?
Yeah.
You can't retrofit. This is for new walls, new floors, new roofs.
Let me ask you. So let's say a client of ours is like listening to this and they're like, oh, I started to build my house. At what point is it too late to bring you guys in?
Good question. It's never too late until you've wasted your money on a wood frame building, in our view. But there is a process, of course, that we all know, right? You're going to do your architecture, you're going to do your engineering, you're going to get it into your permits. If we can get in there earlier, it's just more efficient, right? So at this point, we're working with dozens of architects in LA, including several of the case study adapt architects, which is really an honor.
We had the Sommer brothers on that are part of that too.
Yep. So, yeah, we've been very honored to be working on 5 of those homes right now, which is tremendous. But going back to your question about when, earlier is better, but there's never a time where it's too late. We have many times homeowners or an architect find our system very late in the process. They've already done their plans. We just adapt the plans to a panel and basically go through the permit process that way.
Do people get better insurances?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that. That's the number one question, I think.
The 3 questions that we consistently get are how fast, how much, and can I get insurance? Not even the cost of insurance. It's almost binary. Can I get it or not? Which makes sense because at the end of the day, it makes very little sense to rebuild a house if you can't get insurance.
Yeah.
So yes, we partner with quite a few insurance companies, and we have a nice relationship with broker Marsh McLennan, and they've placed a number of policies. So the numbers are basically showing that we should, and we have been getting approximately 50% lower insurance rates versus conventional. And that's a very big number, but it also means that you actually can get insurance and hold insurance. And these insurers, they do want to be in this marketplace, but they want to be in the marketplace in a way that makes some sense financially for themselves. And losing hundreds of homes at a time is not a good financial decision for the insurers. So they're looking for all types of methodologies to reduce the risk that they're facing financially, and ours is on the top of the list.
I feel like it goes like that for everyone, whether you are buying the house, a client, a realtor, insurance company, a builder, everyone's like, we want to make money. We also want this to work. But at the same time, like everyone's like fighting kind of about like where it makes sense. And at the end of the day, like what makes sense, you can't, we get a lot of clients that come in and they want something. And then it gets to the point of like insurance. And it's like, okay, well now this Palisades specifically is now a fire zone.
Oh, yeah.
It like wasn't before. So things, of course, Malibu was a fire zone. So that, it's very clear when people are buying out there what they're getting into, where Palisades really wasn't. So there's like this new line of it's a little bit confusing, I would say, for people.
Well, look, you're in an evolving climate, right? And when you consider the way we've built, so there's, call it 110 million single-family homes in the United States. And we basically turn over about 1% of that portfolio annually, 1 million homes, right? Everything, therefore, virtually everything in the United States has been built for past climatic conditions, right? Lower heat, fewer storms, fewer wildfires, less intensity of these events, less wind events, etc., fewer hurricanes. You can go back and look at the NOAA data, which is available on their website and whatnot, and you can chart every hurricane, every tornado, every wildfire, every flood for the last 100 years. And it all leads to one thing, that there's more natural disasters, the frequency is greater, and the intensity is even greater. And that just means a nightmare for insurers and homeowners, right? So today you might not be in a wildfire zone. 5 years from now, you may be epicenter.
How do you think these communities are going to look like in 20 years? Like, do you think that in terms of insurance and just, you're having a safe home, that it's worth rebuilding and doing what you're doing to basically ensure safety. Then, like, are all these houses going to look like this in 20 years, you think?
Well, yeah. At a certain point, systems like RSG 3D have to become the standard, right? And now they may not be in codes, because codes are very, very much trailing indicators. The codes follow the technology. The codes never push for greater resilience. They barely push for better energy efficiency. The NAHB just managed to, it's the National Association of Home Builders, that represents 165,000 builders in the United States. They just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars suing the federal government to block the adoption of 2019 international energy codes, because they said it was going to be too costly to throw in some more insulation in buildings. So the 2019 International Energy Code is about here, and our buildings are somewhere up in the ceiling. So we're already decades ahead of this in terms of energy efficiency and codes, and we're decades, if not centuries, ahead of where codes will get in terms of following the resilience needs. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with a very smart gentleman yesterday, and we speak about resilience and the value of it, et cetera. So going back to your original question, or one of your questions about insurance and insurance costs, when you look at a resilient building envelope, when you look at a building like ours, these are the most affordable buildings in the world, because you'll save 50% a year in insurance. You'll save 55-ish% on average in an RSG building on energy, and you'll save about 50 to 60% on maintenance. You start adding those numbers up year in and year out, and we're working on a calculator so people can actually do that very, very easily on our website. But you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars over just a 10 to 20 year period of being in these homes. So whatever your first cost is, whatever your building cost is, you're getting a rebate every single year, right? I was speaking at a conference, an insurance conference back in September, and most of the speakers on the first day were talking about, we need the state government to step in and provide resilience credits, right? Or resilience, funds, so that we can get people to build resilient, in the same way they subsidize solar, right? And when I spoke on the next day, I said, forget it. Your government's not coming to help you in this regard. You just save your energy there. But it's the insurers and their discounts who are paying you annually to have a resilient home, right? It's your energy company that's basically, when you're using 50% energy, that's almost the same as getting a check back every year, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing on maintenance. So if you really want an affordable home, you have to have that building envelope. That's all that matters at the end of the day in terms of life cycle affordability and in terms of building performance. Anything on the inside doesn't matter. You can have a blue sofa or countertops made out of foam for all I care. It doesn't matter to building performance, right? You can have anything or nothing in that building, the highest end finishes or the lowest end. If it's going to burn down, if it's going to shake apart, it's worth near zero. The question that you had, how are things going to look in 5 to 10 years? Well, I think if we continue with the natural disaster kind of state that we've been in, the insurance companies are basically going to bifurcate the market. So, for instance, if you're in Florida right now on the West Coast in some of these counties like Lee or Charlotte, if your home is older than a certain number and made out of certain materials, you can't get insurance. That means that the only buyer that's available to you is somebody who's willing to pay cash. And there's very few of those, and they're coming at a discount. Right? So you may have the $1 million home next to you that was built in 2020, and your $1 million home next to them, and you were built in 1985. You're not worth $1 million. You're worth $700,000, and they're worth $1 million. That flips you upside down in your finances. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a bifurcated market in here, and that means people have to default to a resilient building.
Yeah. So then, building wise, if clients are like, okay, I'm very interested in this, and we've kind of talked about this before, but just want to make it very clear for myself and everyone else. let's say, they're building and they want to get these safety precautions around. You guys are builders as well. So you guys could essentially work with an architect and build up any home if someone had land, or you could connect with, if they already have builders and an architect that they like to help and design that part and then kind of like leave once that's done.
So, we've traditionally been a manufacturing company that manufactures the panels. We sell them to builders, homeowners, developers, etc. A year and a half ago or so, we decided to get into the building business ourselves, right?
Got it, yeah.
So we have our own construction crews. They're called Resilience Construction Group. And they will go out and actually build that home for you. Now, we also have relationships with a dozen really good builders in the Los Angeles area, and we can hand you off to those GCs.
Yeah, so
right?
you guys are kind of, it's all options. Like,
it's all
so
options.
Much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody comes with a different set of circumstances. We have a home that just started framing yesterday in Camarillo. Very nice homeowner, super guy. And he came and he said, all I wanted you to do is sell me the panel and support everything we do, because I want my best friend, who's a builder, to be the builder.
Yeah.
And so we're up there training that builder. And they're doing great. They're enthusiastic, they're skilled, they're smart, they'll be tremendous. So they don't need us to build, right? Okay. And they want to do it their way, so we're in full support.
So can people contact you guys and be like, hey, I'm, talking to insure, I want to get, need to get insurance, I want to build a home, or I want to potentially build a home, and they can get a quote from you being like what it would look like to have these with insurance and then what it would look like to not have it.
So in terms of, quoting buildings, we can tell you what the gray shell of that building is going to be, what the structure of that building is going to be very, very quickly. We have 6 architects and engineers on staff, and all they do all day long is they take a builder's plans, a client's plans, an architect's plans, and they turn them into a panel plan. From that, we know the materials that we're going to build, that we're going to manufacture bespoke for that building. Yeah. We're basically create the panels in the exact design that create the Lego set for the building, so there's zero waste. From that, our builders can take that set of documents and turn them into a quote very, very quickly, within 24 hours. And we're very accurate on that. And fortunately, I think we're probably one of the few materials that have come down in cost in the last year, because we've got so much volume going now, because we've got so many concrete subs and crews and whatnot, and because we have a very large plant, we've been able to drive our costs down about $25 a square foot.
That's great.
In the last year. So that that's not bad on a 2,000 or 4,000 square foot house. It adds up. Yeah. So we're one of the things that's actually going in the right direction.
Cool. Where do you currently live?
I don't know. I live in New York. I used to be an investment banker, and that's where home is. It's where the family is. Oh, but I keep an apartment here.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. That's great. Okay.
Yeah, right by UCLA.
Nice.
It's great. It's basically me and a bunch of students in the buildings. I'm here half of my time at least. Oh, okay. And very nice. Look, it's where all of our clients are, and we're very intent on helping and educating. We put a lot of time into all of these projects, and look, honestly, our clients are the best salespeople in the world, because they start with the belief. If you keep them
happy, then you do what you
they come to us for a solution. Yeah, and that's that they don't want this to happen again. And if we can give them all the information and let them make their decision, they've basically become very strong evangelists for us and our product, and we don't want to disappoint.
We lost 2 houses in the Palisades. Yep. I'm sure you know that kind of. And one of them is framed, so I don't know if we're too late for you.
Too late.
But the other one isn't.
That's right.
So we can get you for the next one, because we haven't started the second house yet. It
would be a wise move. One of the things that's happening to us is the appraisals are coming back much higher for our buildings than wood frame. So
we were so fast. I think, that sometimes bites you in the butt when you don't. But then again, we were like wanting to get it started, and insurance only paid for our housing for a certain amount of time. Yep. And there's so many other variables of like.
Yeah. Well, these rebuild protocols are, in my view, unfortunate, because they are forcing people into a like for like. right? So all the incentives are set up to move your permits fast, quote unquote. Everybody's got a different definition of fast, apparently. But they'll say, okay, rebuild what you have with an extra 10%. You can get your permits relatively quickly. And that forces people to not think, unfortunately. It forces them to go do the same thing that just failed.
Yeah.
And there's the big tragedy, in my view, about, I go through the Palisades, and I literally, honestly, get a little bit nauseous when I go through the Palisades every day because I see so many wood frame homes. To me, it's a giant mistake. You're setting yourself up for a more expensive house, a house that's vulnerable, a house that's going to have maintenance issues very, very quickly, compared to a steel and concrete home that's going to be around 500 years. Save your money every day and keep your family safe. For goodness sakes, we need to learn a lesson at some point in here. A large number of people know this instinctively, that they don't want to do this again. Unfortunately, there's very few companies in our business who are focused first on resilience, right? And so most of your information is the old way.
Well, it's most of the time it's aesthetics, and then it's that. Or my dad always said a Volvo was the best car. That's all I'll say.
Well, there's a
because they're very safe and resilient.
I gave a speech in New York a while ago, and I talked about the analogy between the 1960s and auto safety and where we are today in building. It's a very interesting thing. In the 60s, you had you didn't have seat belts, this is, way before your time, right? But you didn't have seat belts, you didn't have safety glass, you didn't have impact zones in cars, and people were getting maimed. And I think it was 1965, Ralph Nader's book came out. It was called Unsafe at Any Speed, right? And it caused a huge problem. And it focused on the big three automakers and how they were failing the consumer with no safety in these vehicles. And at the time, kind of all hell broke loose. There was a big consumer backlash, and this was kind of one of the first big consumer revolts in the U.S. history. Big consumer backlash. Congress held all these hearings and whatnot. They investigated the big three and forced the big three into more safety. And the big three's response was exactly the way builders respond to resilience, and exactly how I told you they respond to trying to put more energy efficiency into a building. It's too expensive. We can't do it. The consumer can't afford it. Well, the funny thing was that the big threes tried that same set of excuses. Consumers don't need it, too expensive, don't want it, too expensive. Well, within about 5 years, all the advertisers were leading with safety, and Volvo was the first one. And it was, you can find all these old, magazine or ads and whatnot. Volvo, trust your family to us, etc. And all these things. So the safety part of it became the lead marketing, right? And it should be the same thing in a home at this point. We've proven that these homes are not safe in any climate, in any way. And if builders would just invest a little bit of time and energy, and especially developers, a little bit of leadership in getting in front of these resilience, they would get paid back in spades because people want this.
Yeah.
So
I think the best thing you can do is what you said, you're working on a calculator, but basically if there's just keep it easy for people because it's been just a lot lately, let's just be honest. This is how much it would cost to do it this way. Versus this, what you get, the safety features. This is what it would cost this way with the safety features. And then, explaining insurance between the two and just keeping it it's simple. I think that's the question everyone wants to know is how much is it going to cost me? How much am I going to save? And what is this going to offer me in terms of safety actually versus not?
The simple truth is that, 20, 30, 10 years ago even, building a resilient home was more expensive. Today, it's at parity. There's really no cost premium. We've had clients tell us that our building quotes were less than wood frame, right? Yeah. So if there's no cost penalty up front and you're getting savings every single day, every month, every year, why would you not do it? You're getting
why wouldn't you?
All the safety, all the resilience for free, and you're getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
And this is really just an educational issue. that people just don't know that this is available
Isn't
at this
it
stage.
always an educational issue in general?
A lot of it
like
is,
90% of the time, people just don't know.
Right. And that's the tragedy of the way they start these rebuild protocols. Is they basically almost tell you you have to do it the old wrong way. And it pushes people the wrong way.
Yeah.
90% of our clients come to us already having made the decision to work with us because they've done
the research,
education. They've been on the internet. You can go on RSG 3D and, you'll see, my ugly face and the company in 50 articles. It shows up, but you just have to start doing some research and you'll get to the right decisions.
What's some advice you would give to someone who's just in this situation right now, building and overwhelmed and confused and just doesn't know where to start? What's the advice you'd give to that person?
We have relationships with hundreds of people at this point, and hundreds of people who lost their homes, say 5-7 years ago, whether it was the Tubbs fire or the Camp fire or the Woolsey, who have rebuilt with this. And one of my clients called me from Santa Rosa a couple months ago, and he said, when we did this 5-6 years ago, I was the only house in the area that built with RSG, and everybody was very skeptical. Now everybody wishes they had done what we did. And he's a smart guy. He's an engineer and whatnot, so he kind of got it. The advice that I would really give to people is you've got to think forward. You've got to look forward. Where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? It's, it's the old interview question, where do you see your career going in 5 to 10 years? But that's the case here. You have to look at what's ahead. Look, if there's never another wildfire or a seismic event or anything bad in our lives, great.
Yeah.
If that's what happens, then you're set because you've got a 500-year home that's got a higher value and lower cost to operate, and it's healthier and it's more energy efficient. If you think there's any possibility that a bad day could come, you've got no excuse to not protect your family, your assets. These are your biggest financial assets. It's where everything you love is, basically. How could you not make that decision? So look, just look ahead, not backwards. You have to be realistic. You have to be hopeful. But the good news is it's all there. There are companies like ours who can do this for you with no more strain than any other system, probably a little bit faster. And then you're set. You can exhale, right? And you don't have to have that every time the wind blows. Right?
Easier life.
It would be. It would.
Where can people find you, Ken?
Yeah. Well, we're all over the web and Instagram and LinkedIn.
What is your website?
The company is RSG3D. That's the website, obviously, rsg3d.com. But just, go Google that in any fashion. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Grok loves us and ChatGPT loves us for some reason. So you can.
She's my girl.
It's scary how good they are at this point.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. We've run.
I talk to her a lot.
It's quite accurate.
Just talk to her all day.
Yeah,
don't talk to your friends. Just talk to chat. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not good.
That's right. We all need a good internet friend.
Yeah, my mom's like, I was just talking to chat. I'm like, why don't you call a friend? Well, thank you so much. It was so much great information. I'm going to have to listen back a few times even.
Here and act in that manner.
Bye.
Thank you.